Hey guys, welcome to the College Predictor. Today we're going to be going over the Big 12 standing predictions, and by far the most exciting conference, just because this conference is up for anyone to win. The Big 12 might only produce one or two playoff teams, but any of those 16 teams in this conference could make it. So let's get right into it. There's a couple teams that won't have a chance, and that first one, and the 16th place team, will be the Arizona State Sun Devils. Now their schedule, Arizona State, it's decently tough, not too difficult. They have some decently tough out-of-conference games they got to play. Wyoming, who's one of the better group of 5 schools, Mississippi State, an SEC school, and go on the road at Texas State, who's also a really good Sun Belt school, one of the better ones. Their conference schedule, they got to play Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Arizona as ranked teams. 3 of them on the road, and 2 at home. So Arizona State's conference schedule is very difficult. They also have to play UCF and at Texas Tech. I don't see them winning too many games. I think they go 1-2 against Wyoming and Texas State. They're going to lose to Mississippi State. The only conference game I really see them winning is Cincinnati. So I think Arizona State's 2-10 at best, maybe even 1-11. All right, next team had a historically bad season last year. Will be better, but not good enough. Baylor Bears. Now, I like Baylor. I've been to a game at McLean Stadium when they were actually good, remembering the days where they made the conference championship and nearly made the playoffs. They really had a fall-off. They did not have a good season last year. Luckily for them, though, their out-of-conference schedule is a piece of cake. They have to play Tarleton State, an FCS school. Then they got Air Force. Very easy schedules. In conference, they got a bunch of decently tough teams. They got Kansas in the last week on rivalry weekend, Oklahoma State, BYU, Colorado, at Utah. It's going to be a tough season for them. Baylor, I think they can pull off some upsets. Maybe at Iowa State's an upset game. At Houston, they could win. Maybe even versus BYU. I think Baylor is anywhere from that 2-10 to 5-7 range. All right. The team that will be coming in 14th will be the Cincinnati Bearcats. This is the same team that made the playoffs about 3 years ago, and now are a team that everyone's considering horrible, not even good. Like the last couple teams, their out-of-conference schedule is not the most difficult, with Townsend, Pitt, and Miami, Ohio. All very winnable games. I think they can get out of that 3-0. Pitt might give them some struggles, but it is at home. In conference, they only have one ranked team at Kansas State. Cincinnati has a very good schedule, easy schedule for them. However, they still got to go at UCF, at Texas Tech, at Colorado, at Iowa State. There's a lot of tough road games that Cincinnati just won't be able to win. And their roster just isn't the best. They're not a roster capable of winning Big 12 games consistently. Questions at quarterback, questions at running back. This team's just not the best. Alright, from here on out, every team left on this list can win the Big 12, which is kind of crazy to say. But Houston will be the number 13 team. Houston is also a very interesting team. They went off a kind of a slow start last year in their Big 12 debut. This year they are a better team. They did lose Tank Dell from a couple years ago. And their out-of-conference schedule is difficult. They have to play UNLV on the road at Oklahoma, a former Big 12 school, and then Rice, who's one of the tougher group of 5 teams in Texas. I think Houston's very capable of going out 0-3 or 2-1. I don't think they're going to go 1-2. I think UNLV will give them struggles just as well as Rice since it's a rivalry game. They're going to lose to OU. Their conference schedule is very difficult with 4 ranked games in a row being Kansas, Utah, Kansas State, and Arizona at one point. Not to mention, they have to go on the road to TCU and BYU. I don't see Houston having the best season. Maybe 4-8, 3-9. Okay, the 13th team will be the BYU Cougars. Now, BYU is a kind of interesting team. They have the capability of being great. They have a great home atmosphere. They play in a great stadium, and their out-of-conference schedule is very... it's difficult, don't get me wrong, but every game is extremely winnable. They got Southern Illinois as their first game, which is a free win. I hope I say that correctly, because FCS schools have a history of being Big 12 schools sometimes. Then they have to go at SMU, mind you, is an ACC school now. That could be a tough test for them. And then at Wyoming, which I think they dropped that game. Wyoming has a great atmosphere. Wyoming has also beat a Big 12 school at home last year. So I don't think BYU has the best start of the year. But conference schedule, they got Oklahoma State, Utah, Arizona, Kansas as the ranked teams. But they have Houston, Arizona State, Baylor. They have some very winnable games. I think they go 5-7. All right, next team is going to be the TCU Horned Frogs. This team also 2 years ago made the national championship and was looking very promising, but then we got to remember everyone left from that team. Duggan, Quinn Johnson. Now, we're not going to talk about the great team from that year after they lost 65-7. They're going to talk about their team this year. Out of conference schedule, manageable. At Stanford will be a pretty tough test. Then they got Rhode Island, or Long Island, excuse me. And then they have at SMU, who used to be a pretty decent rival for them. I think they don't get out of that game with the win. I think they will beat Stanford, however. So they're going to be 2-1 going into conference play, where their conference schedule is decently tough. They got go on the road to Kansas, on the road to Utah, and play Arizona and Oklahoma State. But they have very winnable games as well. Cincinnati, Baylor, Tech, Houston. So I think TCU could be a bowl game team. They're not going to go any better than 6-6. All right, now we're in the top 10 teams, and the number 10 team will be the Colorado Buffaloes. Now, this is a lot of people's bandwagon team with Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, and after starting the year 3-0 last year, a very disappointing 4-8 finish. So I don't like Colorado too much this year. Also, we're just going to talk. Their roster is still very, very good. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders. You got Dallin Hayden at running back. Obviously, you got Travis Hunter at wide receiver and corner. You got Jimmy Horn as another wide receiver option. Very talented team. I'm not going to take that away from them. But they seem to not be able to win those tight road games, tight home games against the other big teams. And speaking of smaller schools, they got to go at Colorado State. A little revenge story maybe for Colorado State. And then they got to play North Dakota State and Nebraska. Colorado could go 3-0 or 0-3 there. I don't think they could beat both North Dakota State and Colorado State. I think this is where we potentially see an FCS upset. They're going to beat Nebraska. Nebraska still likes to lose games against Big 12 schools. And in conference, they got to play Kansas State, Arizona, Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State. They dropped all 5 of those. They dropped to UCF. They beat Baylor, making them 1-6. They beat Tech, beat Cincinnati, 3-6. I think this is a 5-7 Colorado team, but because I said TCU is going 6-6, Colorado's going to have a better conference record. All right, number 9. This is where it gets really tough to make decisions. Number 9 is going to be the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Now, I'm going to say it. Everything from here on out is going to be 1 or 2 games apart. I mean, it is so hard to predict this conference. Literally, anyone could win any game. Now, they're out of conference schedule. They got Abilene Christian, North Texas, and Washington State. I think they could make it out 3-0. Then they got Cincinnati, Arizona State right after that. So Tech can start the year 5-0. Most likely, if they do, they'll be ranked in the top 25. I think they could even beat Arizona. So we could see a 6-0 Texas Tech team if they play their cards right. Maybe even an 8-0 or 9-0. They got Baylor, TCU, and Iowa State. Maybe 10-0 Colorado. Their only real test is at Oklahoma State. And then they got West Virginia. I think this Tech team, call me crazy, has a potential to go 11-1, but they're going to be no worse than 7-5. Their schedule is a cakewalk. As long as they don't have any injuries, don't mess up any big plays. If they can win those close games, I think Brett Morton's very capable with Taj Brooks as his running back. You can see his Texas Tech team in the playoffs. But I think some other teams will be able to pull some upsets off because the Big 12 is just crazy. All right, the number 8 team is going to be the Iowa State Cyclones. Now, Iowa State's a very consistent team. They're always making bowl games. They're never horrible. So, this is going to be an interesting year for them. They got Arkansas, Iowa, and North Dakota as their out-of-conference schedule. I think they dropped to Iowa. They beat the 2 small schools. Then they got Houston, UCF. They only have 3 ranked games on their schedule if you don't count Iowa. and 2 of them are the last 2 games of the year. So Iowa State also has potential to go 3-0, 5-0, maybe even 8-0 to begin the year. But we know Iowa State, they're going to start good and they're going to end horribly. Iowa State's an 8-4 team, and I think they can finish the year in the top 25, but they're going to have some work to do. All right, top 7. Number 7 team is going to be, hot take, the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Yes, I know, Ollie Gordon is probably the best running back in college football, and this team just made the conference championship. I just don't think Oklahoma State has the schedule too good. I mean, if you look at their out-of-conference schedule, they have the hardest FCS school in South Dakota State. They have an SEC game against Arkansas, and they have to go on the road to a capable Tulsa team. They could go out of that 3-0 or 0-3. It's another one of those situations. Let's assume they go 2-1. They lose to Arkansas. They got so many road games in their conference schedule. They have to go at Colorado, TCU, Baylor, BYU, Kansas State, and this is just a tough schedule for them. I think they can go 9-3. I think there's no way they make the playoffs, though. All right, top 6. Number 6 team will be the West Virginia Mountaineers. I really like their quarterback, Garrett Green. He's a great runner. He can pass it. They have a great offensive core. Now, their schedule is very difficult, however, with a bunch of ranked teams. They have to go at Arizona, against Kansas State, at Oklahoma State, versus Kansas, and then week 1 at home against Penn State. Then they also have to go at Pitt, and then Albany is a free win. West Virginia is a team capable of winning the games they should and pulling off upsets against teams they shouldn't beat. I think this is a 9-3, 8-4 Mountaineer team. Like I said, it's a very capable team. Good running back. C.J. Donaldson Jr. is great. They got Hudson Clement at wide receiver. I just think this team has a really good opportunity to make a very special season happen. All right, top 5. Number 5 team is going to be the UCF Knights. I really like this UCF team. I mean, they're a very capable team of winning those big games. The schedule is not the most difficult. They got Sam Houston out of conference, New Hampshire, and then on the road at Florida, which I think UCF wins that game because I think they could start the year 4-0 with Colorado right after TCU and the 2 out of conference games. If they can beat Florida, they'll have momentum going to Cincinnati, Iowa State. I think they could go all the way up to 8-0 before they have to play Arizona. And if they beat Arizona, this UCF team will be 11-0 before playing Utah. So this UCF team could go 11-1. There's no way they're going 12-0. Anywhere from to 9-3 to 11-1. UCF, this is a scary team. Watch out for them. All right, we got the top 4 teams. Number 4, going off a great season in the Pac-12, and their quarterback and star receiver are coming back. The Arizona Wildcats. They start the year ranked 21st. Schedule not the most difficult out of conference. They have to play teams like Northern Arizona and New Mexico. They have some early tests, though, at Kansas State, at Utah. I think they go 1-1 there. But after that, I could see them winning out their schedule. So this Arizona team, my prediction for them is 10-2. And they have a couple guys that, I mean, you can say what you want. I think they could compete to the Heisman Trophy. Noah Fifita, the sophomore quarterback, showed out when their starting quarterback last year got injured. Rayshawn Luke is a very capable running back. You also got Kendrick Riscano, excuse me if I said that incorrectly, Quali Conley, he'll probably get the starting job. Wide receiver, you got Tyrone McMillan from Hawaii. He's a great receiver. You got Malachi Riley. At tight end, you got K.M. Burnett. You got Montana Leminus Craig. Like, this offense is very talented. Their defense will be the question, however. They have talent all over the place, but nothing too good stands out. That's why Arizona does not win the Big 12. All right, top 3 teams. Number 3, Will Howard's gone. Kansas State will still be great. The Wildcats. They have a pretty decently tough schedule, but they have home field advantage against some of them tough teams. For example, Kansas State, I mean, we know they're capable of winning. They have to go home. They got home against Oklahoma State, home against Arizona, home against Kansas. Every ranked team on their schedule they have at home. Out of conference, they have Tulane and UT Martin, I believe. It's a very winnable games. Like, I'm thinking Kansas State, if they want, they could go 12-0. Kansas State, I think, are going to go 10-2. They're going to lose that game to Kansas, and I believe they're going to lose to Colorado when they have to go on the road. This Kansas State team has the potential to be a championship contender. They're just not there yet. All right, top two teams, left are Kansas and Utah. I really like Kansas. They got Devin Neal coming back. They got Jalen Daniels, Lawrence Arnold at wide receiver. This is a good team. They need to rely on that run game with Devin Neal and Jalen Daniels. I think the only way Kansas wins the Big 12 is if they can control the ground game against all their opponents. And they need to make it out of the non-conference games 3-0 with New Hampshire, Lindenwood, Illinois, and UNLV. Ranked teams-wise, they only have to play on the road at Kansas State. So Kansas could very well go 12-0. There's a couple tough road tests, like at West Virginia and at Baylor. If Kansas plays well, they could go 12-0, but I think they're going to go 10-2 and be second place in the Big 12 because Utah's going to have a great season. They're going to make the Big 12 championship, probably not rematch. They're going to play Kansas. Out of conference, they got Utah State and Southern Utah. Very winnable, capable games. Then they also got in schedule not too many ranked teams. They got at Oklahoma State and versus Arizona. And with the talent on this team, they're very capable of winning those games. Now, hear me out. I think Utah goes 12-0. Their schedule is very winnable. And they have a great roster with Cam Rising at quarterback. You got Michael Bernard at running back. Or you got plenty of great receivers like Money Parks, Dorian Singer from USC. Obviously, you're going to have great tight ends like Brant Kuth. O-line's looking great. Defensive line's looking great. This Utah team has the potential to win the national championship, but they cannot have any injuries like they did last year. If this team could stay healthy, Utah might win the national championship. That's probably my biggest hot take of the year. So my official prediction will be Utah, 12-0 season, wins the Big 12. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, next video will be the ACC, and then the Pac-2, and then we'll go into the smaller conferences. See you later.